The dense forest was cloaked in silence, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of a lone owl. Beneath the thick canopy, Captain Yerrick moved with practiced stealth, his steps soundless on the moss-covered ground. The early morning air was crisp, laced with the earthy scent of pine and damp soil. To Yerrick, these woods were more than just a home, they were his sanctuary, a place where he could leave behind the chaos of his past. But today, something was wrong. Yerrick paused mid-stride, his senses on high alert. The usual chorus of the forest had gone eerily quiet, as if the very earth was holding its breath. His instincts, honed by years of combat, screamed that something was out of place. He scanned his surroundings, every nerve tingling with unease. The birds were absent, and even the wind seemed hesitant to stir the branches. Then he saw it, a faint shimmer in the air, barely perceptible against the early morning mist. It was an anomaly, a distortion in the fabric of reality itself. Yerrick's eyes narrowed as he approached, careful to stay hidden. The shimmer solidified, revealing the outline of something massive hovering silently above the treetops, an alien ship, its surface rippling with energy. It materialized as if conjured by the forest's silence. Yerrick's heart pounded, but his training took over. He crouched lower, moving swiftly through the underbrush. He had seen advanced military technology before, but this was beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. The ship was sleek, almost organic in its design, with dark shifting panels that absorbed the light around it. As he watched, a hatch opened silently on the underside of the vessel. From it descended a group of figures, tall and imposing, clad in armor that gleamed with an unsettling iridescence. They moved with a predatory grace, their elongated limbs and sharp angular features marking them as something otherworldly. The lead figure, taller than the rest, exuded an air of command and cold precision. Zyrex, the leader of the alien hunting party, surveyed the forest with a hunter's gaze. This planet was new to him, but the thrill of the hunt was a universal language. His species had traversed galaxies, seeking worthy prey to challenge their skills, and Earth was their latest arena. The humans were considered primitive, but Zyrex knew better than to underestimate any prey. The hunt was sacred, and every kill was a test of honor. Yerrick watched as the aliens fanned out, moving silently into the forest, their intent clear: they were here to hunt, and by the look in their eyes, it wasn't animals they were after. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. These creatures had come for sport, and humans were the target. Yerrick's mind raced, but fear was quickly replaced by resolve. He had faced death many times before, and he wasn't about to let these invaders turn his home into a killing ground. He slipped away from his vantage point, his movements fluid and silent. He needed to warn the nearby town to prepare for what was coming, but more than that, he needed to survive and to fight back. The hunt had begun, but Yerrick Holt was no ordinary prey. He was a soldier, a survivor, and he would make sure these alien hunters learned the true meaning of fear. As the first rays of dawn pierced the treetops, Yerrick melted into the shadows, his mind already crafting a plan. The forest was his domain, and he would use every ounce of his skill to turn the tables on these hunters. They had come to Earth for sport, but they would soon discover that this was a game they could not win. And as the sun rose, casting long shadows across the forest floor, a new predator was born, a man determined to defend his world, no matter the cost. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Yerrick Holt found the first sign of the invaders' presence: the carcass of a deer, its throat slashed with surgical precision, lay sprawled across the forest floor. The ground around it was undisturbed, as if the animal had simply collapsed where it stood. Yerrick knelt beside the body, his hand brushing over the unnatural wounds. There was no blood. Whatever had killed this creature had done so with such efficiency that the heart had stopped before it could bleed out. Yerrick's jaw tightened. This was no ordinary predator. The alien hunters were skilled, far more than he had anticipated. They moved with a lethal grace, leaving minimal trace of their passage. But Yerrick knew the forest better than anyone. He would find their trail, and he would make them pay for every life they took. He rose, scanning the area with a practiced eye. His years of military training kicked in, and he began to piece together the hunter's movements: a broken twig here, an overturned stone there, subtle signs that would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. They were heading toward the town. His heart pounded with urgency. Yerrick set off at a brisk pace, every sense attuned to his surroundings. The air was thick with tension, the forest holding its breath in the face of this new threat. The usual sounds of life were absent, replaced by an unsettling stillness that gnawed at the edge of his nerves. He was racing against time, but he could not afford to be careless. One misstep and he would become their prey. As he approached the outskirts of the town, Yerrick slowed, crouching low as he observed from the cover of the trees. The small settlement was just beginning to stir, smoke curled lazily from chimneys, and a few early risers moved about, oblivious to the danger that lurked nearby. Yerrick's eyes darted to the shadows, searching for any sign of the hunters. Then he saw them, two of the alien hunters, almost invisible against the backdrop of the forest. They moved with an eerie silence, their forms blending seamlessly with the environment. Yerrick's breath caught in his throat. They were scouting, choosing their targets with a predator's patience. He needed to warn the town, but how? A sudden movement would draw their attention, and he was outnumbered. Yerrick's mind raced, calculating his options. The hunters were methodical, but they had one glaring weakness: they didn't know him or the lengths he would go to protect his home. Yerrick slipped back into the woods, moving parallel to the aliens' path. He needed to create a diversion, something to draw them away from the town. His gaze fell on a cluster of rocks near a ridge, and an idea formed. Moving quickly, he gathered the materials he needed, setting a trap that would trigger a small landslide. It wasn't much, but it would buy him time. He positioned himself at a distance, watching as the hunters neared the trap. With a quick, precise motion, Yerrick triggered the landslide. Rocks tumbled down the slope, crashing through the underbrush. The hunters reacted instantly, their attention diverted to the commotion. They moved toward the noise, weapons drawn. Yerrick didn't wait to see the outcome. He sprinted toward the town, his heart pounding in his chest. He burst into the main square, startling the few people who had gathered there. "Get inside," he shouted, his voice commanding. "Now. We're under attack." Confusion rippled through the small crowd, but the urgency in Yerrick's tone spurred them into action. As they scattered, Yerrick positioned himself at the edge of the square, scanning the trees for any sign of the hunters. The town was small, defenseless, and unaware of the terror lurking just beyond the trees. The hunt had begun in earnest, but Yerrick Holt was no ordinary prey, and this town, his town, would not fall without a fight. As the first signs of the hunters appeared at the edge of the forest, Yerrick tightened his grip on his weapon, his resolve hardening. This was his home, and he would defend it to the last breath. Yerrick's breath came in controlled, steady bursts as he watched the alien hunters advance from the cover of the forest. They moved with the confidence of apex predators, their tall forms slicing through the shadows with effortless precision. The hunters' iridescent armor shimmered in the dim morning light, reflecting the cold, calculating intent in their eyes. To them, this was just another hunt, another world to conquer. But Yerrick knew better. These aliens, for all their advanced technology and superior physical prowess, had underestimated one critical element: human resolve. He crouched behind a low stone wall, his fingers tightening around the grip of his rifle. The weapon was old, a relic from his military days, but it was reliable, like him. His mind raced, plotting the next move. He had spent the night rigging the town's perimeter with makeshift traps, using the landscape to his advantage. The hunters would soon find that they were not the only predators in this game. As the first hunter reached the edge of the town, Yerrick caught a glimpse of the creature's elongated, angular face beneath its helmet, cold, calculating, and devoid of empathy. These beings had come to Earth expecting easy prey, a simple sport. They didn't know what it meant to fight for survival, for home. The hunter stepped into the open, its gaze scanning the deserted streets. Yerrick's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for the right moment. He needed to strike hard and fast, disrupting their formation before they could regroup. The tension built with each passing second, the air thick with anticipation. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the stillness as one of Yerrick's traps sprung to life. A hidden pit beneath the cobblestones collapsed, swallowing one of the hunters whole. The alien let out a guttural, inhuman scream as it was impaled on the sharpened stakes below. The remaining hunters reacted instantly, their predatory instincts kicking in. They moved as one, fanning out with weapons raised, their eyes scanning for the source of the attack. Yerrick took the opportunity to strike, squeezing the trigger of his rifle. The shot rang out, and the lead hunter's head snapped back as the bullet found its mark. The alien crumpled to the ground, its body twitching in its final moments. But Yerrick didn't stay to watch. He ducked low and sprinted to a new position, weaving through the narrow alleyways with practiced ease. The element of surprise was his only advantage, and he wasn't about to lose it. Behind him, he heard the remaining hunters regroup, their movements more cautious now. They were adapting, learning from their mistakes. Yerrick cursed under his breath. He needed to keep them off balance, to prevent them from coordinating an effective counterattack. He rounded a corner, skidding to a halt as he came face to face with one of the hunters. The alien's eyes widened in surprise, but only for a fraction of a second. Yerrick was faster. He lunged forward, driving his combat knife into the creature's throat. The hunter gurgled, its blood splattering across Yerrick's face as it collapsed in a heap. Yerrick didn't stop. He couldn't. The adrenaline coursing through his veins dulled the pain of the minor injuries he'd sustained, but he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. He had to finish this, and soon. He darted into a nearby building, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The old wooden structure creaked under his weight as he ascended the stairs, taking two at a time. From the second-floor window, he had a clear view of the town square, where the remaining hunters were regrouping. They were wary now, their movements less fluid, more cautious. Yerrick spotted the leader, the one who had first stepped into the town. It was issuing commands in a harsh, guttural language, directing its remaining forces with ruthless efficiency. Yerrick's eyes narrowed. He needed to take out the leader, to break their chain of command. He lined up the shot, his finger hovering over the trigger. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of the town. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves outside. Yerrick held his breath, steadying his aim. He couldn't afford to miss. Time seemed to slow as he exhaled and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, shattering the silence of the early morning. The leader staggered, a look of shock crossing its features as it clutched its chest. The other hunters froze, their attention snapping to their fallen commander. Yerrick didn't wait to see the outcome. He threw the rifle over his shoulder and bolted down the stairs, his mind racing. The leader was down, but the hunters wouldn't retreat, not yet. They were too far gone, too deep into the hunt. But now they were disorganized, their movements erratic as they tried to regroup without their leader. Yerrick had bought the town a few precious minutes, but it wasn't enough. He needed to end this, once and for all. He sprinted toward the town's edge, his mind formulating a plan. The hunters had come for sport, but they had underestimated the resilience of their prey. Yerrick would show them that Earth was not a place for games, and that this town was not their hunting ground. As he reached the tree line, Yerrick slowed, his eyes scanning the dense forest. He knew these woods better than anyone. The hunters might have advanced technology, but this was his territory. The final confrontation was near, and Yerrick was ready. The hunters had brought the hunt to him, but now they would learn what it truly meant to be hunted.